Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. Today we're going to be talking about terrorism around the world, and we welcome Brother Alexis Bonello to the show.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's always a pleasure to be with you, talking about topics we aren't talked about anywhere else in social media, but especially this, our weekly program on terrorism around the world. A sad reality of our age that we have to do a program each week. So, AJ, what's our top story for today?
The massacre in Nigeria kills at least 110 people so far. This is an updated news report from Channel News Asia, and the first was reporting on from November 28th that only 43 people were killed in Jersey, Nigeria, but now it's up to 110 people were killed in a weekend attack on farm workers in northeast Nigeria, blamed on extremists or Boko Haram. And
how were the people killed?
Let's see here. They went into the rice fields where the people were working, tied the people up, and slit their throats.
Poor people. And there was some pretty graphic images on social media showing us. Others had their heads completely chopped off, like melons.
Yeah. And the other assailants, armed men on motorcycles, also drove around and targeted the other workers and shot them and wounded a good number of people as well.
This really is heartrending because 3 years ago I wrote the Bishop of Maiduguri, and I said, would you like to have us come over, give a conference and teach people how to defend themselves, get the villagers to learn how to defend themselves, try to get some funding so they can get some weapons to defend themselves. No, he just closed his heart to the whole thing.
Yeah. And see, and it was also in this area, the Borno state capital of Maiduguri, where this happened. And in this area, there is a food crisis, so they're personally targeting the farmers and anyone in the food business.
And to create more famine and flight. Yeah. More than 100,000 people, I think, have fled Borno province because of the chaos, and the government doesn't seem to be doing anything at it. It's a vast region, Borno province, and you can't keep troops anywhere, but you need to hunt down the terrorists and root them out completely. You just can't let them, flee across the border. This is, unfortunately, the Nigerian government and Western governments haven't decided to really solve the problem. But now that we know that most international terrorism is sponsored by the CIA, they might be put on a leash not to solve it, because they're using terrorism to justify military spending, international alliances, and a whole lot of other things for which 110 civilians is a small price to pay so that they can get kickbacks and stuff. Can't say we have any specific knowledge about that, but we solved decades ago. Just go in there and you just take them out. Just hunt them down and take them out. And you can't hide everywhere.
And we learned how dirty and dangerous the CIA shadow unit is in Germany. They shot and killed a good number of U.S. Army Special Forces who went there to protect the elections in the United States and take back the servers. So
Yeah.
Americans killing Americans.
Well, I wouldn't call these CIA people Americans. They're neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
And just turn the CIA into their own little private thing. President Trump needs to abolish the CIA because you're not going to get the rot out of the deep state. The CIA is the hand of the rot. It is the hand of the deep state. And you have a lot of programs going on there under the color of American authority, which have nothing to do with the United States or our foreign policy or even what our citizens would tolerate. The whole thing needs to be shut down. The whole thing. Everyone
Yeah.
needs to be fired. And a good number of these agents need to be put on trial for war crimes and crimes against humanity because what they're doing is completely immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Alas, these poor people in Nigeria, their lives go on. And I don't think they were Christian. I think they're Muslim, but as sons of Adam, and we need to mourn even pagans who are killed in cold blood by terrorists. This is a horror, and something needs to be done about it. And
Yeah.
it is frustrating to know that the people who could solve the problem have said no to the solution of the problem,
Mm.
even in our own church.
Yep. And we move on to let's do Raymond Abrams about subverting American universities. Again, another CIA deep state thing going on. That's good. He's touching on it.
I just lost you, AJ, on audio. Can you switch to your other mic? We'll see if that will work. As soon as you mention the word deep state, your audio disappears. Now I got your sound back. Yeah, now I hear something.
All right, switching mics, folks.
Yeah, as soon as you said the word deep state,
Yeah, they no
it's
longer
not the
target my audio, folks. They go after the big thing. They take these out now.
with Wi-Fi. There's a Wi-Fi.
Uh
So, no, but I can hear you pretty well.
Yeah.
So now let's see. We were talking. Oh yeah, what's the story about the infiltration of the universities?
huh. A recent governmental report exposes the purchased influence of foreign nations have on Americans' most prestigious universities, and as a result, on what America's current and upcoming generation of analysts and policymakers will think and believe. Oh, buddy.
And who's behind that? China.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. More than one third of the nearly 20 billion in foreign donations and contracts made to American universities between 2014 and 2020 were never disclosed as required by federal law, according to institutional compliance with Section 117 of the Higher Education Act of 1965. A Department of Education report released on October 20th, 2020. Among these gifts were more than $3 billion from the Muslim Brotherhood's number one state backer, Qatar. More than $1 billion from the chief disseminator of radical Islamic ideology, Saudi Arabia. And nearly $1.5 billion from China.
It's called that buying influence.
Mm-hmm. According to the report, at least some of these foreign sources are hostile to the United States and are targeting their investments, i.e., gifts and contracts, to project soft power, steal sensitive and proprietary research, and spread propaganda. Yet the department is very concerned by evidence suggesting that higher education industry's solicitation of foreign sources has not been appropriately or effectively balanced or checked by institutional controls needed to meaningfully measure the risk and manage the threat posed by a given relationship, donor, or foreign venture.
I don't even know why American institutions of higher learning are allowed to receive donations from foreign governments or foreign-backed entities. That's just outrageous.
Yeah.
But it shows you that the American universities have become an enemy of America. Ideologic think camps for brainwashing young people are actively soliciting more money to brainwash your children, not to mention charging you an outrageous tuition on top of it.
Alrighty. Huh. This phrase I ran into yesterday when I was investigating Zoom. In March 2019, an event described as 3-day anti-Israel hate fest was sponsored by the University of North Carolina Center for Middle East and Islamic Studies and the Duke UNC Consortium for Middle East Studies. Following this event, the Department of Education warned the consortium in a letter dated August 29, 2019 to stop misusing federal grants by advancing ideological priorities.
So they're taking taxpayers' monies and they're using it to promote the politics of the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
Yep. So, again in 2018, report found that elite U.S. universities took more than $500 million from Saudi Arabia in gifts and donations between 2011 and 2017. As far back as 2005, Georgetown and Harvard each received $20 million to academic studies on their respective campuses.
Mm-hmm. And you know the deep state's behind that because, oh, you need Islamic studies because we're fighting a war against terrorism. But the war against terrorism is being promoted to the CIA, so it's just circular.
Mm-hmm.
And they're selling control to groups that agree with their neo-fascist politics of, well, in this case, I suppose it's hatred of Jews or just hatred of minority races.
Yeah.
But so that's the report on the infiltration universities. Hasn't there been recent movements to promote child rape around the world by courts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Court validates child rape, persecution of Christians, October 2020. Again by Raymond Abrams. So, let's see here. One of the men captured confessed that he was promised a monthly $2,000 payment for fighting against Kharif and Artsakh, and an extra $100 for each beheaded Kharif. Kharif, often translated as infidel.
Kafir, it's pronounced.
Kafir.
Mm-hmm.
Is Arabic for non-Muslims who fail to submit to Islamic authorities, which makes them enemies by default. Harmin Press. Okay, so a sexual act with a minor is felony even if she is willing. The court has validated a rape despite the Sin Child Marriage Restraint Act 2014 that punishes contractors of child marriage with up to 3 years imprisonment. What is the future of minority girls in Pakistan? And so we're going to get into let's see where he talks about it.
So this is Pakistan. They're validating the rapes of Christian girls by Muslim men who then use that as a cover to forcibly take them as brides.
Yeah. Let's see here. So in France, we know about it was the He's talking about the attacks on Nice. And he quotes from the interview with the mother of the attacker. The 21-year-old murderer had started praying and taking his religion more seriously a few months ago. A Quran and several extra knives were found in his possession after the attack.
You know, this has always struck me strange, and now that we understand the CIA's role in preparing these attackers, does someone just become religious and 3 months later decide to kill someone? Or is his becoming religious a cover for what he's doing? Because this guy came out of southern Tunisia, which is a hotbed of French intelligence, and Macron was already planning to shut down the churches, and he wanted a reason to help convince Catholics not to go to church. Beheading 3 Catholics in a Catholic church on a weekday morning would be just the thing, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It almost makes it appear like French intelligence was behind this attack.
Yeah. We have Islamic militants raided a village where they slaughtered at least 18 people and torched a church to the ground. It really creates pain in our hearts, a total panic in the village, said a local official. We don't know if tomorrow the ADF will come back here again. ADF is the acronym for the Allied Democratic Forces, an Islamic militant group which has been terrorizing Christian majority nation and slaughtering Christians for more than 2 decades.
Mm. Their name doesn't sound like an Islamic group.
Mm-mm.
What does it sound like? It sounds like something sponsored by the West. It sounds like Allied Democratic Forces.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, they've been called Islamic forces in the news reports. I find that strange.
Yeah. And in Armenia and Azerbaijan, Armenian churches that have come under Azerbaijani control have been desecrated, despite promises from the authorities to protect them. In one instance, a soldier, unclear whether an Azeri or jihadi mercenary from Syria or Iraq, was videotaped triumphantly shouting Allahu Akbar while standing atop a church chapel where the cross had apparently been not broken off. Days earlier, October 8th, Azerbaijani forces shelled and destroyed Holy Savior, an iconic Armenian cathedral in Shusha that was consecrated in 1888 but was damaged during the March 1920 massacre of Armenians of the city by Azerbaijanis and experienced a decade-long decline.
Well, you know, I don't know why the Armenian people are tolerating their government, but every single attempted ceasefire was broken by the Azerbaijanis. And as I have pointed out before, in the time of the Crusades, it was the Muslims who broke every treaty. You cannot trust these people with a treaty. You got a war until they beg for mercy and give you their territory. You cannot, you know, try to make peace with them because they know no peace. Their religion is one thing. This is, I'm not saying this of all Muslims, of course. Most of them are peacekeeping, but when they have their mind to persecute Christians, so they just go wild. There's no limit there.
Yeah. That's sad on that one. This is basically a roundup of everything going on in all the news out of everywhere.
We should add that the French moved to close churches, and a lot of nations around the world are trying to close churches. New York State, Britain, Ireland. This is a persecution of Christians, and it's probably the biggest one of all. And it's being totally censored out of the news. We hardly know it, you know, on social media, because now the entire social media news networks are just all taken over by international globalism. And they were not going to tell you the news anymore. They're going to tell you a lie. And if you believe what's on them, you're just going to be deceived. I tell people the vaccine is going to kill them, and they laugh because they just believe 27. They don't know reality anymore. They think reality is what the intelligence is telling them.
Yeah.
Real world, they're going to end up dying, and they're going to say, "You didn't tell me." Yeah.
Yeah.
People are fools.
And reason for hardly any news on terrorism, folks, is well, it seems like they have also silenced all that information too. So you're only hearing about the vaccine, COVID, and the election still.
Yeah, they just want to control us completely, absolute, complete control. And they're doing it through people are just so stupid. If you get your news from a group that's controlled, you're going to be controlled. I mean, wake up. The world is not video games. Okay, it's the real world, and you're going to risk your life with these kind of trash who lie to you 27.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe them when you know they're liars? People are just so deceived. They've been so psychologically manipulated. Most people don't have the even the wherewithal to avoid being manipulated because it's just total now. All the companies, all the media outlets, even all the political parties, except for very, very few. Even the Republican Party hasn't come out and said they're against the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're all rooting for Trump because we believe he won the election and that he won't take a hard line on the vaccine. But he gave Bill Gates $1.8 billion, gave Gavi $1.8 billion. So, how is that a friend of America? You know,
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the Christians need to be organizing a Catholic Party for America, and you need to take the country back. I'm telling this to everyone in all the countries. You just can't sit back and trust these people anymore. I did a video on questions every American needs to ask. You can see it my video channel, and on the Militar's Twitter feed, tweeted it out, Militar's Cap. But you got to wake up. You have to stop thinking that these people are your friends. They've killed 200 million people, and they're out to kill 8 billion people. And you going to trust them with their television networks? You're insane. You should be listening to Order Militaris Radio TV, and truly independent. And there's very few of us, very few. But we're slowly gaining ground. People are listening to us. They're not listening to these talking heads. Taylor Marshall just did a poll among his fans. Who do you think's the Pope? He asked his fans. And this guy's going on for 7 years. Francis is the Pope. Francis is the Pope. Francis is the Pope. So he'd expected that the majority are going to repeat what he's been telling them. He's a complete failure. The majority said Benedict's the Pope. Even at the end, he tried to get people to rush in there and say it was Bergoglio. Benedict still won the vote. So that's like the big middle finger up to Taylor Marshall. We know you're a liar and a fraud. We might listen to you, but we're not convinced by your arguments. Bergoglio is not the Pope. And 16% didn't even believe anyone's the Pope. But that's because of the crazy things people like Taylor Marshall saying this guy has to be a Pope. Well, he didn't think anyone's a Pope after that. But this is a sign that people begin to think, and we need to keep pushing the truth. So I encourage you to share the videos here at Order Militaris Radio TV. We can do all the work we want here, but unless you share them, no one will ever get to know of it. And if I have to say one thing of criticism to our fans at Order Militaris, you'll watch our programs, but you won't share them. You won't tell anyone about them. And get 50 people on a program means those 50 aren't even sharing it with anyone. So I don't think you all live in caves. I think you do use social media. So share, share, share. I mean, that's part of your work. Our work is to produce the program. So I encourage you, share, be warriors of the truth.
Yeah. Our next program is to get justice for our actual one and only Catholic president who was murdered by the CIA.
Okay, well, we talk about that tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay, that will be an interesting program. Now the facts are pretty much all out who did it. And let's say who did it, not just say it's unexplained. The CIA would have you believe that it's unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not at all. Quite explained.
And for what he did for his crew and PT 109, saving them with a broken back, security. That should have been a Medal of Honor right there. Just saying it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. They never gave him one.
Nope.
that shows you everything about how much the deep state controls Washington.
Yeah. So tune in tomorrow for the program on JFK and who actually murdered him. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.